Good morning. I'm up late this morning. It's almost 8 o'clock, but I've had breakfast. This letter came in the mail and this box came in the mail. And this box is headed to Utah. Feels a little on the squishy side. It's not wet, but not wrapped as tightly as I would have hoped it to be. But that's all right. It got to me. That was important. And I get to rewrap it anyway. So what am I doing? Bothering you this morning opening a box? Well, I got a special request on the phone from the publisher. I was pretty shocked. Still kind of shocked. Don't know what to make of it. Figured I'd document it anyway. I get a call. Got her special request. Well, the box is still in good shape. It's not wet. It's wet, kind of squishy. It's been cut down a little bit. Oh, let me see what we got in here. All right. We got flyers. And we got a brand new Bible. Oh, wow. This guy went all out. Oh, wow. I want to say I'm not going to open it, but I got to. The request is I autograph a Bible. No, I didn't write this thing. I wasn't on the committees. I told the publisher, we both had a good laugh. I says, I don't know what to do with that. What am I supposed to do with it? How am I supposed to cite it? It's not like I wrote this thing, you imagine. So it's kind of a shock. But I'm going to go ahead and do what's been requested here. I already know what I'm going to cite it anyway. I decided that the moment on the phone with the publisher. We had a good laugh because it was kind of an unusual request. I'm going to be pretty careful with this thing. I'm opening it up. And this is it's a brown leatherette cover. It's got tabs in it. I have not seen one of these, so I am going to look at it just a little bit. Well, it's got some tabs in it. I don't quite understand it. This is a little smaller than the one I use. I use the big letter version. You get to be 70, you'll understand. Oh boy, that's nice and tight. Well, I may have to take off all that cellophane to get this out properly. Oh, well, maybe I just have to remove it part way. Oh boy, no. Oh jeez. I'm just trying to keep everything as intact as I can. Lorraine, what are you doing? Come on up here. Come on up. She's in her full garb this morning. She got her yellow collar on, her regular collar with her dog tags, which she would not wear when she was younger. She got rid of those as fast as she could. She got them off, chewed them off of her collar. It's okay. On one of the collars I had with her name engraved in it, phone number and all that stuff, she chewed up the darn collar off her neck. I still don't know how she got to it. And she's got the training collar on it because she's so powerful. Pulls me on my face. And I'm taking my time. And that part come off all right. Oh, wow. That is pretty, isn't it? Whoa, brand new. I hope it doesn't stay in this condition. I really hope it doesn't. I hope it gets marked up like mine. I hope it gets dog-eared. Oh, wow. So this has got some tabs in it. Okay. This is the title page. It says it's a study edition, cross references and concordance study edition. That's what it says. And we start off with a tab for Genesis. It's got some tabs in it though. The next tab is Job ES. It's not Esdras. Job's to ES. And then after that we have Job SO. Alright. And then after that we have Isaiah to Malachi. That makes sense to me. And then after that, well, we've got Malachi to Acts. And then after that, it is Romans to Jude. And then after that is Revelations. And then the tab after that is appendix to concordance, obviously. Oh, wow. That's nice. It really is. I mean, that's nice, sharp print. It is a little handier than the unwieldy Bible I use. It's kind of unwieldy in comparison, but this is really nice. Okay. I wanted blue ink. That's black. Well, and I can't tell the difference if they don't look the same. I will look around. I'll get a blue ink. I'll get a blue ink pen. That's the old standard that we signed documents with, was blue ink, because everything else in there was black ink and the blue stood right out, and it was less copyable. So I'll sign this in blue ink. I got my multicolored pen here somewhere. I'll find it. It might be in the back next to the bed. Depends upon where I read this at. But look, folks, it is Tuesday morning, the 14th. Tomorrow will be the Ides of March. I got a couple of personal deadlines for myself on that day. And today I'm going to go exercising. But I haven't really prepared anything for you. I had some incredible topics crossed my mind last night. I ate too much sugar yesterday. Met a woman for coffee and ended up with one of those sugar drinks. And man, I can't drink that stuff. I slept for hours. I got home, I ate my dinner, and I went to bed. I didn't get up for more than 12 hours. That's because of the sugar. And I can't be doing that to myself. But I'm not going to be doing much more with this except autographing it. It's a little bit embarrassing. But we're going to do it. And then repackaging it. I don't have an address there. Hopefully it's in this envelope. The publisher tends to abide by all the laws, rules, and regulations. I do too, as best I can. I gotta get an address and a name in here. Oh, come on now. Do not tell me. Okay, there's a label, I think. All right. Well, let's go on to David up in Utah, that's for sure. And nice gift too. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. Well, I actually moved lots and called in at the last minute to make sure we got that taken care of. I got everything changed. So it arrived, was sitting outside on the dog's bed for me to get with my other package out there. It's wonderful to get it. It's pretty fast. I'll get it off hopefully today. I'm probably going to have to go shopping and get some good clear tape to wrap this thing in though. So that might slow me down just a little bit. What do I want to talk about? Well, I'm not getting that much input. I don't know what you want to talk about out there, but we were working on Judges, so why don't we just go right back to Judges? And of course, my ribbon, my marker's out of place, so I have to go by memory on this stuff now. And that's not the best thing, because my memory's kind of, well, it's not so good. It's better than it was. Better than right after the strokes in '06, but still not that good. And we ended with that awkward story in the Bible. After Abimelech, Jephthah, who made a vow, and he fulfilled his vow, and his vow was an awkward vow. We assume from what we're reading in here that he sacrificed his daughter in the fire because Yahweh delivered the enemy into his hands. It's a strange story in the middle of the Bible, and I can't place it very well. There are some things that we just can't account for right now. Why is this in the book? And I thought there was a name. I'll have to look in the other versions of the Bible to see if this woman, I thought this girl was named. I thought she may be named in another extra biblical book. But we're going to go to Judges 12. And the men of Ephraim gathered themselves together and went northward and said to Jephthah, why passed you over to fight against the children of Ammon and did not call us to go with you? We will burn your house upon you with fire. Continuing in verse 2 in Judges 12. And Jephthah said to them, I and my people were at great strife with the children of Ammon, and when I called you, you delivered me not out of their hands. And when I saw that you delivered me not, I put my life in my hands and passed over against the children of Ammon, and Yahweh delivered them into my hand. Why then have you come up to me this day to fight against me? Then Jephthah gathered all the men of Gilead and fought against Ephraim. And the men of Gilead smote Ephraim, because they said, you Gileadites are fugitives of Ephraim among the Ephraimites and among the Manassites. Why is it Ephraim always seems to want to challenge everybody else as to why didn't you get us involved in the fight? Why didn't you call us? You've insulted us. And they want to fight with their brothers. And the Gileadites took the passages of the Jordan before the Ephraimites. And it was so that when those Ephraimites which were escaped said, let me go over, that the men of Gilead said to him, are you an Ephraimite? If he said no, then they said to him, say Shibboleth. And he said Shibboleth, for he could not establish. It's the same word. Oh, he said Sibboleth. There's an H missing. They say, now say Shibboleth. And he said Sibboleth, for he could not establish to pronounce it right. Then they took him and slew him at the passages of the Jordan. And there fell at that time of the Ephraimites 42,000. And Jephthah, I can't say it right, judged Israel for 6 years. So he ruled for 6 years. Then died Jephthah the Gileadite, and then he was buried in one of the cities of Gilead. And after him came Ibzan of Bethlehem, judged Israel. And he had 30 sons and 30 daughters, whom he sent abroad. And he took in $30 from abroad for his sons. And he judged Israel for 7 years. So he married his daughters off somewhere, and he brought in 30 for his other sons. Then died Ibzan and was buried at Bethlehem. And after him, Elon, a Zebulonite, judged Israel, and he judged Israel for 10 years. And Elon the Zebulonite died and was buried in Aijalon in the country of Zebulun. And after him, Abdon, the son of Hillel, the Pirathonite, judged Israel, and he had 40 sons and 30 nephews that rode on 70 donkey colts, and he judged Israel for 8 years. Oh, that's 70 boys. And Abdon, the son of Hillel, the Pirathonite, died and was buried in Pirathon in the land of Ephraim in the mount of the Amalekites. Judges 13. And he and the children did evil again in the sight of Yahweh. See, they go forgetting Yahweh. And Yahweh delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. And there was a certain man of Zerah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and bore not. And the angel of Yahweh appeared to the woman and said to her, Behold now, you are barren and bear not, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Now therefore beware, I pray you, and drink not wine nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, you shall conceive and bear a son, and nose razor shall come on his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb. And he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Then the woman came and told her husband, saying, A man of God came to me, and his countenance was like the countenance of an angel of God, very awesome. But I asked him not from where he was, neither told me his name. But he said, Behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, and now drink no wine nor strong drink, neither eat any unclean thing, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death. Then Manoah entreated Yahweh and said, O my Lord, let the man of God which you did send come again to us, and teach us what we shall do to the child that shall be born. And God listened to the voice of Manoah. And the angel of God came again to the woman as she sat in the field. But Manoah, her husband, was not with her. And the woman made haste and ran and showed her husband and said to him, Behold, the man has appeared to me that came to me the other day. And Manoah arose and went after his wife and came to the man and said to him, Are you the man that spoke to the woman? And he said, I am. And Manoah said, Now let your words come to pass. How shall we order the child, and how shall we do unto him? And the angel of Yahweh said to Manoah, Of all that I said to the woman, let her beware. She may not eat of anything that comes of the vine, neither let her drink wine or strong drink, nor eat any unclean thing. All that I commanded her, let her observe. And Manoah said to the angel, I pray you, let us detain you until we have made ready a kid for you. And the angel of Yahweh said to Manoah, Though you detain me, I will not eat of your bread. And if you shall offer a burnt offering, you must offer it unto Yahweh. For Manoah knew not that he was an angel of Yahweh. And Manoah said to the angel of Yahweh, What is your name, that when your sayings come to pass, we may do you honor? And the angel of Yahweh said to him, Why ask you thus after my name, seeing it is secret? So Manoah took a kid with a meat offering, and offered it upon a rock unto Yahweh. And the angel did wondrously, and Manoah and his wife looked on. For it came to pass, when the flame went up toward heaven from off the altar, that the angel of Yahweh ascended into the flame of the altar. And Manoah and his wife looked on it, and fell on their faces to the ground. But the angel of Yahweh did no more appear to Manoah and to his wife. Then Manoah knew that he was an angel of Yahweh. And Manoah said to his wife, We shall surely die, because we have seen God. And his wife said to him, If Yahweh was pleased to kill us, he would not have received a burnt offering and a meat offering in our hands, neither would he have shown us all these things, nor at this time have told us such things as these. And the woman bore a son, and called his name Samson. And the child grew, and Yahweh blessed him. And the Spirit of Yahweh began to move on him at times in the camp of Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. He was a Danite. I'm going to stop right there. I got to populate the other channel with a video as well. And I had some incredible thoughts last night as to what I was going to do on that, and I can't remember them. No, I didn't wake up to take notes. I stayed with my dreams. We're in great distress in our nation, and I can't help but wonder which nation we are in. Are we Israelites? Are we descendants of Israel? I think so. What should we call ourselves? Well, my friend Andy was his nickname. Edwin Kroger was his full name. When I called him up from Anchorage, we talked for the first time for 2.5 hours, I think. I want to say 4 hours, but it was a long time. He was on his farm in Ohio, and I was in Anchorage, and I remember that there was an ungodly warm wind from the interior that melted a lot of the ice and snow, and the pine tree outside my window was starting to bud on the 1st of January. It was about that time that he and I talked, and I was renting a condominium. I had leased it for a year with a heated garage. I had a fine automobile at the time. I had a Porsche Cayenne Turbo. It was a nice car. Cost too much to keep on the road. Loved high-test gas. It was really quite a luxurious automobile. Probably the most heavily optioned Porsche of that year. Probably the heaviest of the modern Porsches, period. It was pretty doggone heavy. I think it was 5,800 pounds. I don't remember exactly, but I think that's what the door said. It had the advanced off-road package is what they called it. It's more than a $5,000 option at the time. Car had more options on it than I had actually spent on a whole other car altogether. I bought it pre-owned, secondhand. I had figured out that Joshua failed to kill them as he was ordered to do. He failed to dispatch those when Yahweh told them, kill them all. Then I realized that's who we're dealing with today. That's who our enemy was. So from my Bible reading, I was able to figure that much out on my own. But what I couldn't figure out, and what I didn't know about, was what had happened, what started it all. What had happened to Eve. I didn't know. Andy explained it to me, and I was deeply disturbed for 2 weeks. 2 solid weeks. I was very depressed over this information that I had. Couldn't figure it out on my own. I was really grateful that he explained this to me. And shortly after that, he asked me, do you want to get on Pastor's CD list? I said, well, I don't know. I don't know if I can afford it. And Andy says, it's free. It's free. I said, really? He said, yeah, just give me your address. I'll get you on it, and we'll get you a CD up there every week. Well, the mail went up to you. And so I got on Pastor Jerry Wickie's CD ministry list, and I got these things and the CDs, and I was listening to the message, and Jerry sounded like a really big dude to me. I was impressed. He sounded like he was a big man of authority. I mean, he knew what he was talking about. Okay, Lorraine, it's okay. Come on. It's okay. Anyway, Jerry sent me CDs for a while, and maybe 6 weeks later, Andy calls me up and says, are you ready to talk to Pastor? I said, what? What do you mean talk to Pastor? Nobody talks to the pastors. We shake their hands on the way out, that's about it. Nobody talks to the pastors. Pastors don't talk to us. He says, this one does. And I'll be darned. So he put us together, and we talked on the phone, and it was affectionate. I don't know how else to say it. It was wonderful. It was great talking with him. And that started up that relationship, and it took me a while before I finally met Jerry. My car was not working well the first summer, and I couldn't drive across the country, and I was too busy trying to get it worked on. Porsche in Boise, Idaho was impossible to work with. The mechanic didn't know the cars very well. So I had to drive it way over to Bend, Oregon. I get over there, and the mechanic, I'm waiting to see what's going to happen with the car. I had to make an appointment in advance. I had to drive all the way, almost clear across the state, more than 2/3 of the way. Took a long time. I think I actually got a hotel room, and I think they gave me a loaner car. I don't remember very clearly, but they didn't have enough time to get all the work done on the first visit, so I had to go back out again. In less than an hour after giving the car to the tech calls me up, or he says, "Your car's not running right." I says, "How do you know?" Because the other mechanic, the other tech in Boise swore everything was perfect. It was running good. And he wrote up critical information, critical reports, critical of me for my excessive speed. And I'm like trying to show him that it's not working right. It's not performing like it did when I got it. It turned out the mechanic before his sidekick was working on it and failed to connect one of the wires on the turbos. So it was only making maybe 300 out of the 450 horsepower available, which made a tremendous difference in fuel efficiency. I was getting maybe 8 miles to the gallon towing, and once I got that wire hooked up, I was getting a good solid 12, 14 miles to the gallon. And I had a lot more power. And the guy told me, he says, whenever a car comes in, I test drive it first. That's how I know. He says, yours isn't making any power. And we got that fixed, and it still had an overheating problem. And I guessed what it was, and it was a leak off the back of the engine, a leak in the cooling system. They had 3 little joints on the back of the system, and I had already replaced the plastic hoses with aluminum ones, but the guy didn't have time to get the little tiny parts in the back, and I had read, and guys warned us that those fail too, so you want to make sure to catch those. Well, I had the parts, and they finally got them on down there in Bend. It made a tremendous difference, but my whole summer was shot, so I couldn't drive across country to Ohio and meet my friends there. Anyway, that's kind of how things started. I met Edwin Kroger on Facebook, and he asked me, it must have been 5 times, and on the 5th time I was getting really short-tempered. Why do you keep asking me if I'm a believer? And I guess he just didn't want to open up. Didn't want to say a word unless he was certain that I was. So I got upset with him the 5th time and says, "Yeah, why do you keep asking?" And he sends me his number. "Give me a call." So I called him up, and we talked for 2.5 hours straight, I think it was. And about an hour and a half into it, he says, "Man, you're a fast learner." And I said to him, "Are you kidding? I've been working on this for years, since I was a little boy. I've been working on this since I was about 5, maybe 7 years old. And I mean, you're filling in the pieces." Now, I knew that the people we're dealing with, Joshua failed to dispatch, and they were scattered into the rest of the world. And that's who we're dealing with, the offspring of those people. I didn't do a real good job of tracking them down, but I've tracked it down to enough of an extent that I'm satisfied with it. Now, I'm also satisfied with realizing the lack of knowledge I have, the limits of my knowledge, and those are that it's not just a small group. It's not just one fallen angel that we're dealing with. That angel was Gadriel, who seduced Eve, fathered Cain. And it wasn't just one son of a fallen angel we're dealing with. We're dealing with sons and daughters. And we're dealing with somewhere around 200 fallen angels that decided they were going to go and have sex with the daughters of men because they found them fair. That was the big conspiracy. Now, I differ from everybody else. As far as I know, this is my deal when I say this, so I mean, if I'm wrong, you want to correct me and change my mind, fine, I'm open to it. But I don't think of the original sin like most do in this world of Christianity. Most of them say the original sin was on Adam. He was at fault for it. He was to blame for it. And then you've got the others who will say, no, the original sin's on Eve. She screwed up. She was deceived, and she became a deceiver. That's what I was told when I read this one particular passage in the Bible where Eve announces that with the help of Yahweh, she got herself a man-child. Apparently, the original sin wasn't in Genesis 3:15 or Genesis chapter 4. It was in Genesis chapter 6, verse 2. And I think that it would behoove us tremendously if we as men and women agreed to place the blame for that sin on those who committed it, on those who knew better and yet violated natural law, those fallen angels. So I look at it as that gives us some relief, because instead of being at each other's throats, we can work as a team, hopefully, and have good, strong families, hopefully, and be faithful to each other by the grace of God, and our children prosper, and when we depart, they're here carrying on. But right now, the evil one and his children ruled the place. They've owned it for a long time. At the time of Yeshua, the devil owned it so well that he offered it to the Messiah. He says, all you have to do is get on your knees and worship me, and I'll give it all to you. You can have every bit of this earth, which of course implies that he owns it, that it's his, that he can give it to whomever he pleases. As I read the Bible, that ownership ends. And it's probably during our lifetime, during my lifetime at that. It's that short. And they know it. The real problem we have right now is that we do not understand who we are. And because we don't know who we are, we can't know who the enemy is. We don't recognize the enemy. And in case you're wondering, the enemy looks a lot like us. So they're able to get away with murder, with identity theft, with fraud, with all kinds of crimes, and cause all kinds of mischief and blame it on us. The Chinese have really helped us tremendously with their old records, which predate the Bible considerably. The Chinese wrote, and they called us white devils. Why did they call us white devils? Why does the word in Chinese today mean white devil? I mean, they'll be polite and be politically correct and call us Caucasian, but the original people that looked like us to them were white devils. What did they do in China that caused that much havoc and that much difficulty that they became known as devils? That's very revealing. And if you do a word study in this book, you'll come up with different words that were interpreted as man and men. There's two different words for Adam, Adam-kind. And Adam refers to the noble man, I think is the best term. Okay. And then there was already on the planet the Enosh, or the Enoshwi. And that refers to the earthy man that was here first. Okay? And the Chinaman was part of the Enosh or Enoshwi. I don't have all the details. I can't tell you the details. But they were here first. And they wrote about the arrival of the fallen angels. Only they called them white devils. It was so pervading. They caused so much trouble over there in China that they formed a religion after it. They referred to these men that were bigger than they were, bigger stature, and greater leverage, greater power, as dragons. And they formed a religion on it, the dragon. They worshipped the dragon. And so to this day, they go and they prospect for dragon's teeth. And to you and I, it sounds like, my God, they're going after the giant reptiles. They're going after the dinosaurs, right? Well, it turns out that they're going after the fallen angels, the bodies of the fallen angels. And they're going after the teeth. Why the teeth? Because the teeth preserve the DNA better than anything else. The enamel's very hard, and that's the most concentrated form of the DNA they can get. Did you know that when our army, our military, went into the Gulf War the first time, one of their objectives was to get the body of Gilgamesh? Gilgamesh's mother was a human. His father was a fallen angel. So he was a half-breed. He was a mix. And they were after his body for a reason. I think they got it. And a lot of these dragons may actually be half-breeds. Don't know. But we do know that they prospect for them, and they take the teeth, they grind the teeth up and sell the powder, and it's one of the most expensive substances on the planet. Probably ranks up there with adrenochrome, if you know what that is. And the first time I heard the word adrenochrome was in a movie. I think it was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas or something like that. Nicolas Cage was in it, and they just happened to have this little segment where they talked about adrenochrome in the middle of nowhere. So that was a way that Hollywood got the secret of theirs out. That's another expensive substance. I've heard of some actors that have spent $500 million on it. I'm not going to identify them. They're actually around. I don't have the money to defend against a libel slander suit like that. And besides that, my knowledge is not complete. But I do think Hollywood should be called Trannywood at this point. I think that they worship the hermaphrodite god, form of Satan, that goat with breasts on it, that's male. It's kind of a weird deal. That's what they're worshiping, so they get great power. And what do when they do that? They pervert the rest of us. They set up these sex goddesses, if you will, that turn out to be transgendered men. They don't tell us truthfully about it. And once in a while, you get a transgendered fellow who's not an actor or actress. And he will tell you straight up what he's about in his male voice. In this female body, he looks gorgeous, looks good. Looks like a woman, isn't? And he'll tell you straight up what he is and what she's about. I almost think of that as being somewhat noble, because it's far more honest than what we have coming out of Hollywood. You need to realize that the folks in Hollywood have had a long standing ever since the Shakespearean stage, ever since that era. In that era, acting was considered such a low profession that women weren't allowed on the stage. They weren't on the stage. Everybody you saw on that stage was a man, including Juliet, and all the rest of the women up there were men. And everybody in the audience knew it. In some ways, I think we're living in a darker age than they had back then. Because they knew the truth. They knew that these were not women on the stage, that they were men. And today, can you tell the difference? And this has been going on for so long. A lot of these so-called beautiful women that were set up as models for the rest of us when I was a little boy, they were transgendered. It's pretty disturbing when you think of it. I guess the good part about it is at least now we can identify them. What do we do about it? The number one thing I think we do is we read the Bible and we develop the Holy Spirit, develop the ability to discern things. Maybe we will not be so deceived as the other people around us because of Bible reading. I think that's what happens. I also think that we access the mind of Creator Father God Yahweh, and I think that's important as well. And if we are fortunate, we get the blessings. The blessings for obedience mentioned in Deuteronomy and Leviticus. A double witness. Certainly America had those blessings for quite a while. And now we have what should be called the curses or the consequences for disobedience, which are mentioned twice in the Bible as well. So that is one of the ways I like to point out our identity, is that look at our nation today. Look at what we're suffering from. Edwin Kroger, when I asked him what he called himself, what do we call it? What do you call this stuff? I mean, what denomination is it? Come on, tell me. Fess up. What are you? Come on. And he said there were two ways he'd like to consider it. Neither of which I really agree with, by the way, because I'm reading the Bible and I go to what it says. And he said, biblical Christianity. This is biblical Christianity. Okay, I can go with that. It is biblical, much more biblical than all these denominations and these bigger organized religions like Catholicism or Roman Catholic Church or Protestantism or even the Eastern Orthodox Church or the Orthodox Church of Greece, the Orthodox Church of Russia. So it is Bible-based. Okay. The other term he'd like to call it was, he says, I'm an Israelite Christian. Okay. What the heck is that? Well, basically, he recognizes that he's a descendant of the house of Israel. That seems more accurate to me. I like the sound of it better. Israelite is not Israeli. They're not the same at all. An Israeli is a citizen of that little postage stamp of a country over there that pretends it's Israel. An Israelite is a descendant of Israel the man. Now that I've said that, do me a favor and don't go walking around saying they're mutually exclusive. I think there's going to be some overlap there. You're going to find an occasional Israeli whose family never left there. And they could be rightly considered an Israelite. Now I remember what came to me in my sleep, what I wanted to talk about on the other channel. The one thing we have to do is become more flexible in our thinking. In order to get our way out of the catechism, the prevailing brainwashing, if you will, we have to become more flexible in our thinking and consider other possibilities. And one of those would be that an Israeli and an Israelite could possibly be the same critter. The same man, the same woman could be an Israelite and an Israeli at the same time. It would be rare, but it would be there. And another thing is that a lot of people want to say, well, all Israelites, all Adam kind are Israelites. And that's not possible either. There were no Israelites until Israel the man. He had 12 boys and 1 daughter. And so there were no Israelites before Jacob, Israel. So that's important to know. So we do have other Adamic peoples out there who are not Israelites, who aren't Israel. And so we need to consider that. We need to be flexible in these things. And we have to remain flexible because when you get down to the big picture, it's overwhelming. Because we only are dealing, and the Bible with one dude, one child of one fallen angel, Cain. Well, there's allusions to others. There's mentions to others. There's giants in here that are mentioned. Some are identified. Those would be somehow related or an offspring of one of the fallen angels. At this point in time in history, we've blended in so much that we have what I would call regression towards the mean. We've established a species of human, if you will. And that's the way it is. And I think what's really amazing is every one of us gets out there and we talk about our heritage and our identity and, the peoples we come from. And the fact is that none of us knows, well, I don't think, but there's probably some that might know. But none of us know, most likely, how much we have of the other races, the other species is what I prefer to call them, in us. Did you know there was a man called the Dragon Man about 80,000 years ago? And the main difference between the Dragon Man and you and I is they had thicker skulls. Did you know that there was a cave in New Mexico that's filled with giants, men of approximately 7 feet in stature? And some of these guys, they figured weighed 400 pounds, 300-pound men. And did you know that one of the interesting characteristics of their skeletons is that the skulls were paper mache-like? Now you wonder. You wonder when David faced Goliath, and when we read the Bible carefully, and I'll find it for you, you'll find out there's another man that story's been attributed to. His name begins with the letter E. That's all I can remember right now, and it's mentioned only one time. But when David faced Goliath and hit him in the forehead with a stone, it makes you wonder, was this one of those beings that had a paper mache thin skull? Very susceptible to being damaged by a nice smooth stone flung by a sling. I say these things because I want you to get flexibility in your thinking. I want you to get flexibility because there's a lot more revealed in this book. And if you've got flexibility of thinking, you're going to have access to more of it. You're going to know more of the truth than the others by being flexible and being open-minded. Some people will tell you we've got spaceships in here. I'm open to it. I can tell you who has those ideas. Some people think that the fish that Jonah went into was a whale. Okay. Some people think it was a fish. Some people think it was a submarine, another vessel. Okay. Whoa. You have to be open-minded in these things. You really do need to be open-minded. And when you start reading a little bit more broadly and you get into the apocryphal books, what you're going to discover is that there's a bit of disparity. Because in the Apocrypha, it looks like the Messiah comes out of the ocean. Yet, if we read the Bible proper, what has come down to the Bible to us, we read that he is going to come back the same way he left. And they say he left in a cloud. Okay, so he's coming back by air or by sea. Be flexible in that. Now, I'm going to give you another tip that I think will help you immensely. When you see words like in the latter days, in the latter times, the day of the Lord, you're reading about different days. You're reading about different events. We know that the Jews, supposedly, got things wrong because they just counted the Messiah showing up one time and that was it. They didn't count upon him coming twice. And of course that's the prevailing attitude of Christianity, or churchianity as I prefer to call it today, is he's coming back. He's coming twice. And a large part of the population out there thinks there's going to be a rapture. It's not biblical, folks. I'll tell you that right now. There is a bunch of raptors that show up. and they do some harvesting of the evil ones. That's the closest thing to a rapture we have supported in the scriptures. But as I was getting to it, there are different days of the Lord. There are different events. What looks like a burning mountain tossed into the sea. What looks like a giant millstone dropped into the sea. An earthquake there on, the Mount of Olives that divides the land up. Jeez. Okay. Joshua touching down his foot to the Mount of Olives, setting off that earthquake. The earth becoming like sackcloth, getting dark, right? Not looking bright yellow. It's not bright yellow anymore. It's almost white, in case you're wondering. It's going bluish white. It's a garish color compared to the color it was most of my life. It was yellow. And the quality of the radiation is different. I can only stand so much exposure to it. It sort of stings a little bit. So things are different with our sun and different with the radiation that's reaching the planet. And all of this stuff, all of the science and all this history is being deprived. We're being deprived of it by the evil ones. The word is the first false flag was the burning of the Library of Alexandria. Supposedly they gave the order out to all these writers and educators, bring your books to the Library of Alexandria. They gathered the books. They got the books given to them, maybe. Books were expensive back then. And then supposedly the library burned and they lost the books. Yet I've heard that they actually removed the books first and then they burned the library, the building, to cover up their crime, to make an excuse. And it actually went as far as people got suckered in again. The word went out, we've rebuilt the library at Alexandria. Bring your books. And it happened again. It got burned again. Those books are somewhere, folks. I'm willing to bet you I know where they are. They're in that little peninsula of Italy. And I'll bet you anything, they are lining the corridors of an underground library. 8 miles of corridors, what I've heard they have down there. I don't know where I heard that from. I went to school one year, the university in Florence, and I heard a lot of things. I wish I could remember them more, but one of the advantages I have by making these videos for you is I get to talk about things I haven't thought about in decades, and I get reminded of things, and occasionally I put things together. And I realize I was in the right place at the right time. I wish I had taken more notes. I wish I had done some journaling. I wish I had paid more attention. And I wish I had been a better little boy. One of the things I wish is I had more respect for my father when I had a chance to demonstrate that. So that's one of my biggest regrets. Another regret was I wish that I had read the Bible when I was really small. Reading was very difficult for me. I remember the Dick and Jane readers. I struggled with those. And I remember struggling with it when I was in 2nd grade. And I wasn't getting it. And I remember the little girls were getting it. They were reading sooner, faster. That's because I had testosterone in my body, which was inhibiting the development of the left hemisphere. And the girls didn't have testosterone coursing through their bodies, inhibiting the development of the left hemisphere. So they developed language skills earlier. You know this stuff about we're not going to hold 25-year-olds responsible for murder anymore because their frontal lobes are not fully developed? There's actually some truth to that. But the problem is that where do you draw the line? So by liberalizing murder, these Democrat jurisdictions are going to get more murder. That's how dumb they are. I got news for you, though. It's actually true that the frontal lobes of men do not stop developing. Hang on to your seats until age 36. Men develop much slower. It's much more delayed than it is in a female. Women are given everything they need right out of the chute to do it all. They're given their beauty, their youth, their fertility. And a man, on the other hand, his development is delayed. You know, you're not really much of a man until you hit 25. And your frontal lobes don't stop developing until you're about 36. So, are you going to liberalize murder until the age of 36? Wow. A lot of people might not make it to 37, but they'll live long enough to be able to get away with murder, huh? Folks, we're living in a real weird time. The times are evil. I should be ducking and covering. You should probably be doing the same. That's what the Bible says that a wise man does. He recognizes the times, and when the times are evil, he ducks and covers. The problem is that we have a battle to attend to. We're being warred upon. We're being genocided. We're being attacked. Why is that? It's because the evil ones know who they are, and they know who we are, and they know that we're the only challenge that they have to worry about. We're the only ones that have half a chance of defeating them. And they're throwing the rest of humanity at us, against us. And the sad thing is, the rest of humanity is too busy hating us to realize who the real enemy is. Folks, these folks are ready to cause war. They can't figure out which way to go first. They're about ready to cause war in Iran, Persia. They're ready to cause war, with Russia. They've already started that war. And they're trying to start a war up with China. They are out of control. These are not Americans at the helm. These are not our people. They look like you and me. They act like you and me in some ways. They pretend they're the same as the rest of us. But they're not. And they're busy genociding us. They're busy setting the whole planet up for problems at this point. I don't know what's going to come to pass. We got nuclear war written in here. It's documented really thoroughly. It scares me. Does it have to happen? I don't know. We have a chemical, biological war in here. It's pretty detailed. It's not documented nearly as thoroughly. But is that what has to happen? Well, it certainly seems like pestilence is what has been brought on us. And it looks like that's the evil ones are working on more greater, better pestilences for us. And we haven't shut them down yet. Thanks for hanging out with me this long. Appreciate it. Get these videos out there, like them. Above all, become a Bible reader. And as I sat down with the publisher at lunch, I said, what's the best version of the Bible? Of course, he wanted to know what that was, right? Because he's got one he's publishing. And I told him it's the one you read. So if this style Bible doesn't appeal to you, get the one that does. If this language doesn't flow enough for you, if it's not glorious enough, if it's not filled with enough accolades or enough wonderful sayings for you, then go get one of the other versions. It's fine. There's plenty out there. Start somewhere and push your way through it. Learn the names of the characters. Learn the plot. Look at the history of it. And read it at a concrete level at first. Take things as literally as possible, because it's actually meant on several levels. Literally is just one of them. And when you really get into it, you realize that somebody like Isaiah was writing about the past, and he was writing about the near present, and he was writing about the future. And some of that stuff hasn't happened yet. Here I am at Isaiah 15. And I have highlighted up here, verse 30, chapter 14, I will kill your root with famine. Smoke comes out of the north. On all their heads there shall be baldness. Out of the serpent's root, a fiery, flying serpent. I think dragons were just in the movies. Maybe they really had them back then. Yahweh bless. Make America good again. Restore our republic. Give us the opportunity to restore our republic and demonstrate our goodness once again.